Shout out to Wally and the crew for having the vision and seeing it through. That's living proof. Topics they go and discuss more than a few. From finances to fine art, mental health and more. Living proof we could change for sure. We can't afford to destroy each other anymore. You deserve better. From yourself though, mind, body, and soul. Promote self-growth. We the generation that's gonna heal itself for the future. No problems, all solution. Straight action and execution. Staying in movement. Mentally choosing. Excellence over the bullshit. I'm powerful. Listen, man. Takes a whole lot of discipline and self-love to feel, let alone be significant. We all on a mission, yeah. You don't have to pick a side, but you do have to pick a guide. I'd rather choose me than not. Who better to navigate than Almighty Snow the Great? The goal is to thrive all the way and spread love. I think we have endured enough hate to sit around and spectate. It's time to be proactive and start being instead of acting. One love. Verse 39. Peace.
That was powerful words from my close and personal friend,
Same thing with control,
Mr. Snow.
but you must let go.
You know, it's a beautiful thing being able to work with people that I've known for years to do something that I've always wanted to do. Because, you know, people ask me all the time, what possessed me to do a podcast, right? Because nobody really does podcasts, especially from the communities that we're from. Everybody wants to have a jumper. Everybody wants to be a baller. Everybody wants to be the man. And nobody really values education. Nobody really values intellectual discussions. Nobody really cares about the truth. So what I wanted to do is offer something different for all of us. I want us to give us a forum where we all could come together and we could talk and we can discuss these topics that nobody really discusses. So a couple months ago, a friend of mine came and he gave me a proposition and he told me, you know, I got a studio and I really feel that this is something that will work for you. So I want to give a huge shout out to my friend Lawrence Brazil over here at One Life to Play, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be able to do any of this. I want to give a huge shout out to my friend Paul Agnew, who's over there working the sticks and the controls. You know, he's the one that's making all of this possible. You know, I wouldn't be able to be here where I'm at today, being able to talk to you, if it wasn't for the multitude of people that I had in my life over the years that gave me the opportunity to survive another day. So for all of you out there that are watching, and you ever opened up your home to me, if you ever let me sleep on your sofa, if you ever gave me $1, if you ever gave me a crumb of your food, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, moving forward, what is the theme of the podcast? I'm not here to talk about conspiracy theories. I'm not here to talk about lizard people.
I just also want to say thank you.
You're welcome. I'm not here to talk about these. We're here about proving. This is what the whole show is about prove. What can we prove, right? So we're going to talk about a lot of science. We're going to talk about a lot of medicine. We're going to talk about a lot of history that got altered and left out the textbooks that we went to school. I'm not a Harvard graduate. I don't know any Harvard graduates, but that doesn't mean we don't have the same intellectual capacity to have discussions that Harvard graduates have. You know, we all got 24 hours in a day, and we all got the same intellectual capacity to read the same books, right? If I had a microscope right here, I'd probably be able to identify what's the difference between an RNA and DNA virus, right? The people in power, or should I say the system that's in power, because it's not just a group of people, it's a system. And it's a system that's been empowered since the beginning of time. As long as human beings learn the idea of being able to finesse another human being, that's one of the greatest secrets that they never told us. So people always ask, what's the big secret that these secret societies are hiding, right? Well, it's the ability to finesse another man. That's always been the big secret. The ability to lie, right? Where does the lie come from? What causes someone to lie? Well, fear, fear of the consequences if the truth is found out. So you got to understand that we have a lot of people that build their reputations on their educations, on their careers, and a lot of these careers and reputations are built on lies. So there's no incentive to tell the truth. If I've been a doctor for 50 years, if I was a scientist for 50 years, and I built a reputation for myself based off a lie, what incentive is it for me to tell you the truth? What incentive is it for me as a doctor to have healthy patients? There's no incentive in that. We're not going to get into that today. I want to establish what the show is, and I want to establish what the show is not. This is not somewhere where we're just going to have ghetto discussions about random topics with no idea what we're talking about, because that's not really how I get down. Anybody that knows me on a personal level is I take my intelligence very serious. I take research very serious. I take the topics that I talk about very serious, because they all have an integral, vital role in our lives every day. And now this is an opportunity for us to really step our game up and really learn about the reality around us. So what is the reality around us? That's the $1 million question, right? What is our reality? Well, reality is based on perception. A reality for a crackhead is not necessarily the reality for somebody that lives in Beverly Hills. It's not the reality for somebody that lives in Africa. It's not the reality for the millionaire that lives in his private jet 90% of the time. Everybody's perspective of the world is different. Their experiences are different. Their intelligence is different. Their physical characteristics are different. Everybody in this world is different. So that puts us in a paradox, right? Paradox are two ideas that are opposing. So we all want equality, and yet nature doesn't recognize that, because no two people in the world are equal. So we get into situations where, so here's the definition of paradox: a seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement or proposition that, when investigated or explained, may prove to be well-founded or true. That's basically what a paradox is. So we find ourselves in these paradoxes all day. We get up, we go to our jobs or whatever it is that we do for a living, and we want to make money. And we want to make money to have a better life. But in the process of us working and making a better life, we add to the process of inequality that exists in the world. Because somewhere else in the world, somebody's not working. Somebody's not trying to better their life. So we add to the very inequality that we're fighting against. It's not our fault. It's not their fault. It's the nature of the world that we live in. Because most of us live in paradigms, and that limits the spectrums of thought that we're able to use when we're analyzing what it is that we see. Half the country right now is wearing a mask. Half the country right now isn't. Why? Because some people believe their paradox, and some people believe this paradox. And these paradoxes are in opposition of each other. So this is where we get into the concept of what we call the Hegelian dialectic. And it's important that you understand this, because the Hegelian dialectic is pretty much the basis of our reality. How does the Hegelian dialectic work? Let's say I'm a president of a country, and the policy that I want to enforce in my country is I want to remove firearms. I have to create an environment that's conducive for the society to call for the removal of firearms. So how can I do that? Well, the first thing I can do is make sure that the people in the inner cities are poor and they have automatic weapons. Then what we do is we politicize the concept of owning a gun, right? If you're a conservative, you're an NRA, right? They make you look like a gun nut. They want you to look like one of these people that, you know, the majority of violent crimes are done with people with illegal weapons. So gun laws are irrelevant, because the majority of violent crime that's done by criminals is done with guns that are obtained illegally. So enforcing more gun laws for people that are already following the law is absurd. But this is all part of the Hegelian dialectic. They're not addressing the real issue. They're addressing a blanket issue, and in turn, that creates another set of problems because now you got the Republicans fighting against Democrats and nothing gets accomplished. The whole time, the people with the guns are still going around shooting people, killing people. It is what it is, right? Part of the reason why we're in this situation is because we allow this. So real quick, Hegelian dialectic, usually presented in a threefold manner, was stated by Heinrich Moritz Schalibos as comprising three dialectical stages of development. A thesis, giving rise to its reaction, an antithesis, which contradicts or negates the thesis, and the tension between the two being resolved by means of a synthesis. So basically, this is what you see manifesting when you see Bloods versus Crips, Coca-Cola versus Pepsi, black versus white, the chessboard. All these things are examples of opposites, Hegelian dialectic principles. This is how our world is built. It's always been like this since the beginning of time, where government was able to come and concentrate its power into a small group of people. Now, moving forward, I don't want to be the only person talking on the show. You know, a podcast for me is conversation, and it's people talking, and it's people building. I don't want to be a teacher because I'm not qualified to be a teacher. I'm still a student myself. So for me to sit here and give the impression like I'm teaching people is being intellectually dishonest with myself. It's not really in my character. The fact that I'm doing a podcast is completely out of my character because the people that know me on a personal level know I'm a real private individual. But opportunity presented itself in 2020. And for a long time, the people at the top, the people at the top of the pyramid been feeding off of chaos. They've been profiting off of chaos. So it's only right that I kind of do the same. So moving forward, each episode, I want to try to attack a topic in depth. We're going to get into some very old books. We're going to have some very new books. All of you that are watching the show will have access to these books. I will send you links. You'll be able to research these books on your own, and you come to your own conclusion. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. All of us are adults. At this point, most of us already got our minds made up about how we feel about most things. What I'm trying to do is introduce critical thinking into your reality. Meaning, don't take things just because somebody with a doctor coat said it, just because somebody with a label that says grandmaster or professor or whatever. I feel like true intelligence comes from experience. Like when a mechanic is talking about fixing a car, I let the mechanic talk, especially if he got 20 years, 30 years of experience, because I don't know nothing about the car. So I don't need him to have a degree. I don't need him to have, his experience is enough to verify his knowledge on the topic. So for me, when it comes to things like philosophy, occultism, metaphysics, anthropology, these are things that I've studied for the better part of 10, 12 years. It was something that I got introduced to right before I went to school for the HVAC and things like that. And, I was always an intellectual. I'm not really a fan of labor, doing hard labor. Anybody that knows me already knows how I get down. So, with me, I wanted to see what can I get up and do every day that I love to do, that I enjoy to do, talking shit is one of those things that I love to do and I enjoy to do. But it's not just random shit. It's shit that has substance, that has value, right? A lot of you that follow me on Facebook, that I bring up a lot of topics that not necessarily a lot of people talk about. And the reason I do this is to introduce these things to you, to let you know that it's still a part of your reality, even though you don't want to accept it. My belief, my friend Paul's belief, everybody's belief in this building, your belief, none of our beliefs are part of the power structure. And that's something that we need to understand as people. We think that just because we get up and pray and we're good people and we're not robbing and stealing, that the people in power feel the same way. And that's not necessarily the truth. As a matter of fact, this world is built on people being power hungry, greedy, and corrupt, and using your lack of intelligence or our lack of intelligence collectively against us. And where does that start? So for most of us, the lie starts when we get to school. You know, we get to school in kindergarten, and the very first rule that we learn in school is to follow directions the first time they are given. We're not told follow the directions the first time they are given if they are correct, if they are valid, if they are worth following, right? We are told to follow directions the first time they are given, and any type of back talk or any type of resistance to that is frowned upon. So going through the school system, we're gradually indoctrinated into these paradigms of I call them spectrums of thought. So early on, we learn how to spell and we learn how to write. So now it's a situation where this is our first interaction with controlling our reality, right? Being able to communicate words and form them into a complete sentence and share them with somebody else is an expression of our thought. Everything starts up here first. Now, with children, this is why children are a little bit more honest than adults, because they don't really know how to lie yet. So naturally, children, when they communicate what they're feeling. And this is why the school system, I want to say the modern school system, is set up the way it is because it's almost like they're shaping, they're social engineering our future, right? They're steering our kids into the direction that they want them to go. Everybody that's a parent, everybody that has kids should have invested interest into their kids' education, right? One of the big arguments right now is, are we going to do homeschooling, virtual learning? And the whole time I'm thinking in my head is a lot of these adults need homeschooling. They need virtual learning because they grew up misinformed. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means the information that you was given was wrong or it wasn't completely correct. And we grow up with these half truths. I mean, I remember for the longest time, we thought Columbus sailed the ocean blue, 1492, right? They had a whole song about it and everything. Nowhere in the textbook was it mentioned about the rape and pillage of Puerto Rico or Boricua. That's how the island was known in 1492, right? Nowhere in the textbook was it mentioned about the rape and pillage of the Taino people. Nowhere. And for a long time, we believed that lie. We were cutting turkeys and doing all this thing, celebrating a lie. We celebrated a lie, you know? Nowhere in the Bible does it mention that Jesus Christ was born December 25th. That is a lie. It's nowhere in the Bible. But we've formed our society around these ideas. You know, nowhere in the Bible does it says Jesus resurrected in April or March. You know, we'll get into what's the real reason behind that later on down the road. But a lot of the things that we were raised as adults from children were based on lies. And part of this podcast, one of the things that I want to do is take the lies out of it. You know, we want to take the fluff out of it. We want to take the politically correctness out of it, and we want to get to the truth. I remember the other day I had made a post on Facebook, and I specifically said that all lives don't matter to me. Does that mean that I lack empathy about human life? Absolutely not. What it means is I feel that in order for your life to matter in this world, you have to add value to it. And how do you do that? You add value to your life by looking after the number one asset that you're going to experience in your life is you, right? Most of us, you know, when we're younger, we make stupid decisions. You know, a lot of people that know me from the neighborhood, you already know I spent half my life on the street corner. You know what I'm saying? Ruining my community, ruining people's lives. That's what I did. So for me, a lot of this, what I do, volunteer work, community work, podcasts, sharing information, it's a redemption process for me. It's how I cleanse my soul of the bad karma. You know, I remember when I went to prison and I used to sit there and I used to be like, if I ever had the opportunity to share my experience with people and that experience, that story of my experience is able to help somebody get out of a bad situation, then that's good. Because, I mean, a lot of us, you know, we grew up in the crack era and we weren't really expected to make it here. You know, I remember the whole. I remember living in New York when we were little, and we'd be walking down the street, and literally the water puddles would be filled with crack vials, right? And this was a reality for me at 5 years old. And I remember my mom vividly telling me, she was like, "You pick that up off the floor, I'll beat your ass." You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I didn't listen because 10, 12 years later, I found myself on the corner doing the same thing to somebody else's kid, right? I was selling somebody else's parents some drugs and not really understanding the effect that this had on the whole collective of the world that we live in. So now that I'm older, it's all about trying to fix the problem and come with solutions. I could sit here all day and I could tell you about all type of people that are trying to do scary things to us, but that doesn't really solve the problem, you know? One of the biggest problems that we see right now, there's no guidance for the youth, especially the male youth, right? The number one demographic of youth being killed is African American males. And why is that? Right? So primarily music is a heavy influence in a lot of our lives, right? For most of us, music is, you know, our escape route. When we're having fun, we listen to music. When we're sad, we listen to music. Whatever we're doing, we listen to music. And music nowadays doesn't contain the same level of content that it possessed 15, 20 years ago. And that's by design. That's social engineering, right? If you look at music, early 80s, early 90s, yeah, there were some elements of criminal activity in there, but most of the music was about self-empowerment, lifting yourself up out of the ghetto, intelligence, valuing the woman, right? Many of the rappers refer to the women as earths, right? This is a term that came from the 5%er teaching. So, you know, it was a situation where the music now is not empowering any of those principles into its music.
Right there.
It's a situation where now they're promoting drug use, they're promoting violence, they're promoting you to treat your woman like shit, and in the process, it's destroying the family structure. So we can identify part of the problem. The second part of the problem is we don't promote intelligence in the inner city. We frown upon people that are intelligent and we call them nerds and we be like, "Oh, dude's corny." And the whole time he's the dude signing your check. Well, whatever job you work at, the nerdiest dude, the corniest dude is probably the one signing your check. And that's a harsh reality of life that people don't want to accept, right? Because they want to be cool, they want to look cool all the time. And, you know, at 38 years old, I'm not trying to look cool no more. I'm trying to tell the truth. I have kids I need to raise, right? So a lot of what I'm going to do in moving forward with this podcast is going to give us all a platform where we could come together and we could talk about, if you guys ever have topics that you want to talk about or you have an issue that you want to talk about, hit my DM. There's a chat room there. Put the topic up. We'll get into it. And it's going to be a good time, you know. Eventually, I'm going to bring in guests. We're going to have, you know, I'm not an expert on anything. I research a lot. We'll bring in experts. We'll bring in people that you feel comfortable listening to. And we're going to move forward like that. Now, one topic that I do want to get into today that's very important that I touched on a little bit earlier is the idea of social engineering. And social engineering is something that is very subtle, it's very behind the scenes, but it's very effective. So it's kind of something that we do with our children, right? We social engineer our children to some degree, right? When we're kids, you know, we tell them to get out of the rooms when certain people are there or when we're having certain conversations, right? We're programming our kids to understand that there are certain things that they need to hear and there are certain things they don't need to hear. So on a bigger level, our governments do this to us, right? Because in a way they treat us like we're children. Some things we're allowed to hear and some things we're not allowed to hear. But a lot of the things that we don't hear are the things that we need to hear. So that's why I'm here, because I'm going to tell you a lot of these things. Social engineering. Now, we're going to look at the first definition here because social engineering is one of these words that has a dual definition. We're going to look at the first one. the use of centralized planning in an attempt to manage social change and regulate the future development and behavior of a society. The key word in this definition is centralized, meaning that the group of people that are doing the planning are very limited. This is not a wide encompassing idea of these people and these people and these people. This is a very small group of people who come together and they decide how society is going to move forward over 10 years, over 20 years, over 50 years, because they've devoted their life to studying how humans operate in the human mind. So one of the ways they do this is through the media. The media is probably the primary tool in the modern world that they use for social engineering. How do they do this? Well, let's look at the word media. Let's go to the let's get the etymology for the word media real quick. Media is it's a root word that comes from the word medium, meaning in the middle. But this is also a word that was attached to people that interacted with spirits in ancient times, right? Even now, people that interact with spirits, they're called mediums. And it simply means middle. It's the middle ground. It's the liaison between you and something else. And what the media does is they try to take the policy that the government is trying to put out there for us to accept, and they spin it and they give it to us in a way that we could digest it and accept it and make it reasonably acceptable. Because if it was told to us in its true form, it'd probably be riots in the streets. Quick summary. The Latin root word medi means middle. This Latin root is the root origin of a large number of English vocabulary words, including medieval, mediocre, and media. So you can see that all these words, mediocre, right? What does mediocre mean? That's what mediocre means. In the middle. It's not good, it's not bad, it's Medieval, those were the medieval times, right? These were the times before modern history, but after antiquity. And then media. So by playing the middle ground, they giving us filtered information. If you watch CNN, you're probably getting left-leaning information. If you watch Fox News, you're probably getting right-leaning information. If you watch MSNBC, you're probably getting far left-leaning information. All the information that you're getting is in a paradigm, though. None of it is the truth. Maybe 20%, 30%, maybe 40% truth if we're being nice. But it's not the absolute truth. It's not the objective truth. So for the most part, you're getting 60% a lie. Social engineering at its finest, because now you're basing your idea, when you get on Facebook and you go argue with your friends, you're basing your idea on 60% of a lie. You're debating with your friend that probably read 5, 6 books about this particular subject, and you watched an episode of Anderson Cooper, or I don't know, what's the other guy on Fox News? I don't know. I don't watch any of these guys. But you watch an episode of these guys and now you feel informed, right? Because they're saying exactly how you feel because you grew up in the Republican spirit thought or in the Democrat spirit thought, and they're saying exactly what you want to hear. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth. And this is very important in understanding how the world operates, because Coca-Cola and Pepsi do this, right? They have you thinking Coca-Cola, Pepsi, right? The red versus the blue. This is the same dynamic that we see in the Bloods versus Crips. Any type of opposites that are opposing each other. We see this dynamic really taking place. And this is all a form of social engineering. This is all a way of putting us in bubbles. And as long as you're in a bubble, you're never going to expand outside that bubble. The people that deal with animals, that deal with fish, know that, when you're dealing with fish, fish grow to the level of their tank, right? That's why fish that live in natural water, they grow way bigger than the fish that lives in the tank, because the tank is a bubble for the fish. And that's what they try to do with our spectrums of thought. They try to put us in these bubbles. Oh, well, if you're a Christian, this is the only thing you could think about, and anything outside of this is the devil, right? If you're Muslim, this is all you can think about, and anything outside of this is the infidels. If you're Jewish, this is all you can think about, and anything that you think about this is for the goyim. right? But all of these things are paradigms. Once you start to live outside of paradigms and you start to interact with people from other places and you travel the world, you start to realize that we all got the same common goals, right? We all want to live, we all want to eat, we all want to have fun, we all want to make some money, we all want to take care of our kids. And you start to realize that race is not really big of an issue. It's an issue here because this country was built on those principles. But when you go around the world, you will see that race is not really that much of an issue. What is race, right? So let's look at race. Because, me growing up, I always thought a race was when two people were in competition when one person was trying to get to a finish line. So what is race? Etymology. The word race, interpreted to mean an identifiable group of people who share a common descent, was introduced into English in about 1580 from the Old French race, from Italian raza. So the word race has been around maybe what?
Yeah, it's not even that old.
300, 400 years?
Right. It's not even that old. It just was introduced, but everybody's so stuck on race now, huh?
So this is the problem that we have. It was introduced to the English language in 1580. So that means that we have a word that was introduced to us in the Middle Ages. And yeah, humans been around 200,000, 300,000. I mean, it's debatable at this point. We'll get into that at some point, how long humans actually been around. But when you start getting into the history of human beings, you start to see share a common descent is the key part of this definition. Common descent, right? Whether you buy the out of Africa theory or whether you buy the Asiatic theory, human civilization or originated from a common source. So basically, we are one race. We are the human race, right?
Amen to that, huh?
That's the end of it right there. But social engineering doesn't allow that, right? The Hegelian dialectic principles don't allow that. We have to have some type of conflict, right? We have to have some type of dialectics going against each other. So they introduce these concepts of black and white. Black and white shouldn't be used to describe people. I always tell my educated African American associates and friends, I always tell them, why do you use the term black? Because
Right.
black, the very definition of the word black denotes the absence of light. And we carbon beings that contain melanin, right? Mm-hmm. We absorb light from the sun. And yet we use the term black
To describe you of absence of
to
light,
describe ourselves.
and we are
It
nothing
doesn't
but
make
energy.
any sense to me. And this is why it's important that we understand, we're really going to get into word etymology. I'm one of those people that I like to find the origin of the word. Let's go to the word nice, because I want to show people something. Let's go to the word nice. Okay? There's a popular saying, a popular phrase, right? Nice guys finish last, right?
All
And,
the time, huh?
There's a reason for this, right? Because the root word of nice means to not know. Ignorant, in Middle English, it means stupid, right? So if you're a person that's in the state of not knowing, how can you possibly finish first? If you're in the state of not knowing. Ignorant, if you're in the state of ignorance, how can you possibly finish first if you're in a state of ignorance? If you're in a state of stupidity, how can you possibly finish first? So we use this term nice, I'm a nice guy. I don't use the word because I understand what the word means and where it came from. A lot of the English language is like this. This is why it's important to understand word etymology, because a lot of the words that we use have a completely different meaning in the way that we use them now. This is why our language is so confusing. A lot of people may not know this, but English is a language that's written backwards. It's written left to right.
Because everybody else reads right to left, huh?
A lot of the classical languages, Arabic, things like that, Hebrew, they're written right to left, right? And for my friends that know about occultism, right, you already know that the left-hand path is always affiliated with darkness and evil and things of that nature. So we're writing a language that inherently is backwards and is a perversion of the natural way of how linguistics and things of this nature was shared with the ancients in the ancient time. So now we're going to get into how social engineering is being used today. The mask, right? That's like one of the big debates that's going on right now. And let's go to the etymology of the word mask.
Bet.
We're going to get down here. Wow. Mid 16th century, from the French word masque, from Italian maschera, mascara, probably from medieval Latin masca, which means witch or specter. Specter is another word for ghost, but influenced by the Arabic word mascara, which means buffoon. So this is another situation like the word nice, right? Where we see a word and it means one thing, and then when we really break down the etymology of the word and we get down to the foundation of the word, we find out that it means, or its origins means something completely different, right? A lot of us go to the pharmacy to get medicine, right? Let's bring up pharmacy. Because this is where we go get our medicine from. So, pharmacy says late Middle English denoting the administration of drugs. Pharmacy via medieval Latin from Greek pharmakia, practice of the druggist, based on the word pharmakon. So now the word pharmakia is the Greek word for sorcery. If we look at the origin of the word pharmakia, it would say sorcery, or they were the people that made poisons. They would put the little chemicals into their little pilong and they'll shake it up, and this is how they administered drugs back in the day. A lot of pharmacies still use the symbol, the RX symbol, on their for their logos. So again, we see that a lot of these words and their origins have very negative connotations. I mean, you see right here, medieval pharmacy from the Greek pharmakia, a medicine which itself derives from pharmakon, meaning drug, poison, or spell. Okay, so the last two words that we talked about, pharmacy and mask, their origins are connected to occult principles: the witch, the ghost, the poison, the spell. This is how social engineering works. This is how black magicians are able to keep spells on people for thousands of years right under our noses, and we don't even know it. Okay, when we get into occultism, we're gonna expose all of this, and we're gonna. Right now, I'm just warming up. It's the first episode. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to get you guys an understanding of where we're trying to go with this. For me, like a lot of these things are old news, right? Because these are things I probably talked about on my Facebook, or I've had personal conversations with people at my house, and you know, I want us to have these conversations collectively. You know, I got a lot of smart people that I'm going to bring on the show, and you're going to be able to hear from them out of their mouth, their experiences, you know, and being able to do it with people that I've known for 10, 15, 20 years is a beautiful thing. So we're going to do some social engineering. We are going to put ignorance to rest, right? We're going to try to put this generation of ignorance. We're going to try to social engineer ourselves up out of here, right? Because the crack era did a number on us. You know, then we had the whole 9/11 incident that really changed and put into perspective how much freedom we don't have, right? Because that's one of the things that we really believe that we have, and it's a wonderful idea, but it's not a reality. It's not really what exists out here. We have limited freedom, meaning we have freedom that comes with conditions. You can't leave the country whenever you want to. You can if you have a passport, meaning that you need the passport to leave the country. So that passport is going to require that you pay money. So it wasn't free.
Nope.
So that's a contradiction to the whole idea of freedom, because when we look at freedom, it means the absolute liberation to do whatever we want, right?
Right.
But we can't do that.
How can we be free on a planet? And if you look up the etymology of planet, it's a play trap. Like you play them,
Let's look that up.
and you trap them.
Let's look that up. Because that's one of the things, that's one of the biggest misconceptions they wanted to give us about the world. They make us think that the world is overcrowded and there's not enough for everybody to live prosperous. That is a lie. I'm on camera telling you there's a lie, and we're going to prove that it's a lie. But first, we're going to get into planet. Middle English from the Old French planete, from the late Latin planeta, planetis, from the Greek planetes, meaning wanderer. So basically, that's just what it means.
You
to
wander. You wander until you're tired. You can't go nowhere anywhere.
And even that definition for the word planet is a contradiction because the planets don't wander. But we'll get into that when we get into astrology and things like that. We'll get into that. But, you know, basically, you know, we're in a situation now where we have, I want to say, the freedom or the limited freedom, right, to change a lot of the bad things that were done to us over time, right? You know, we look at what was done to the Puerto Rican women in the 60s with birth control, right? They literally used our grandmothers and our aunts and our mothers as guinea pigs to social engineer the next generation into accepting birth control, right? And what did this lead to? Because this had, all these decisions got consequences. What did this lead to? This led to a heavy rise in babies born in Puerto Rico with birth defects and women not being able to have kids at all, you know, and they used us as the guinea pig, right? And all this came from us not knowing, from us being nice. This is where this came from us in a state of ignorance, right? From us having masks on, from being buffoons, right? And when I'm talking masks, I'm not talking about masks to cover your face. I'm talking about the masks that we wear as individuals, the masks that we wear when we refuse to tell people the truth. And we lie about things. Lying is a form of wearing a mask. That's what it is, because you're putting a different face on and you're giving that face to the people out here and you're not telling them the truth. That's what our politicians do. That's what our government does. That's what the media does. That's what these celebrities do. That's what a large majority of people that you interact with on an everyday basis do. One of the things that I try to emphasize is don't wear a mask around me. And again, I'm talking about this metaphysical mask. I'm not wearing one with you. Everybody that knows me knows my door is always open. You can always knock on my door, whether you want to come and have a conversation, or even when I was in a state of ignorance and I was open to conflict, I was always available because I never wore a mask. The thing with me is I want to make sure that we make being intelligent cool again, right? Intelligence is a very beautiful thing. If you take it into your household, you will start to see a lot of things change. One of these areas is you will start to see more fruitful and meaningful relationships with your friends, your family, your significant other. Because now you go from a state of not knowing to a state of knowing, right? You start to understand the woman that you live with. You start to understand the feelings that your kids have when they're going through whatever emotional upheavals that they got going in their life. When your friends have success or when your friends are going through it, you're able to balance those relationships without investing too much. You know what I'm saying? Investing too much energy into things. Because we have a bad habit of doing that as people. We like to invest energy into bullshit, right?
Right.
You know, sometimes, you know, I'll be riding around somewhere and it'll probably be like an early this Saturday morning and you'll see 300, 400 people in line to buy sneakers. And all power to them, right? Ain't nothing wrong with buying nice clothes. Everybody likes nice shit. I like nice shit. Everybody like nice shit.
They probably caught the bus to get them.
But then it gets in a situation where we're crying 2 weeks later when a police officer shoots somebody and there's no line of protesters anywhere. There's no line of people holding signs saying, yo, what's going on, right?
Right.
The government stole $240 trillion from American taxpayers. Nobody said anything about it. But the minute your neighbor got $600 on their income, their unemployment, people was ready to put posts on the internet and bash their neighbor and call them a lazy bum
Right.
and call them all these things. But the government just stole $240 trillion of your taxpayer money and you said nothing.
Nothing.
So then it gets into a situation that do we really care that we getting finessed by our government every day? Do we really care that we getting finessed by the media every day? Because a lot of this comes from complacency. The story of the Wizard of Oz, I know many of you seen the story of Wizard of Oz. And the allegory that was told in the story of Wizard of Oz, can you bring up the definition of allegory?
Yes, sir.
The allegory that's told in the Wizard of Oz is the story of Dorothy. And Dorothy comes from a little rural town in Kansas, and she has her little dog Toto. And she gets carried away into a land of make-believe, right? And when she gets there, she's told to follow a yellow brick road to get to a place called Emerald City. Now, real quick, allegory. A story, a poem, or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one. Get familiar with this word allegory because when we start talking about religion, you're going to see this word a lot. Because a large majority of the Bible
Is allegory.
is allegorical. Now, back to the Wizard of Oz. She's told to follow the yellow brick road. So now we're going to decode Wizard of Oz a little bit and try to get an understanding of what was the message that we're trying to tell in this, because it's relevant to us. And it got everything to do with social engineering. So the first person that she meets on her journey is the Scarecrow. And he doesn't have a brain. And this is implying that he doesn't have the intelligence to think or to do anything for himself other than follow her down the yellow brick road, right? So she explains to him that she's going to a place to get back home and that if he comes with her, she might be able to help him. So make a long story short, they continue on their journey and they meet the Tin Man, right? And the Tin Man has no heart. So this is implying that he has no love, right? He doesn't have no empathy. He doesn't have the ability to care for someone else. And then on the final leg of the journey, she meets the lion, and the lion has no courage. He's a coward, right? Meaning that he doesn't have the willpower. He doesn't have the strength. So individually, each one of these are lacking. Each one of these characters in this allegory, in this story, they're lacking. One of them is lacking intelligence. One of them is lacking love. One of them is lacking courage. But together as a unit, they're able to get to where they need to go.
A trinity.
You understand? So now that they got to where they needed to go, they start to realize, hold on. Everything that we did on this journey gave us a heart, gave us a brain, gave us the courage. So when they get there and they realize that where they were going to find these things, it was just a man behind a curtain. So how does this apply to us, the individual, right? Well, a lot of the times we externalize a lot of the things about ourselves, right? A lot of us are waiting for a savior. We're waiting for the government to come save us. We're waiting for a check. Instead of going out there, applying ourselves and using the ability that our creator gave us, whether you believe in the creator or not is irrelevant. You know, something created us, whether it was frequency or vibration or the Big Bang or God or whatever you want to call it, something created us, because the mathematical principles in our body tells me that something created us, right? So they get to this Emerald City and they realize that there's a man behind the curtain and he really doesn't have no power. But for a long time, he was able to pretend like he had power because nobody was willing to go behind the curtain and see. So what are we doing? We as individuals, we're going behind the curtain now. We're going to go behind the curtain and expose that we don't need to go somewhere else to find love. We don't need to go somewhere else to find courage. We don't need to go somewhere else to find intelligence. All that stuff is already inside us. It just has to be brought out. The majority of our life those things have been trying. They don't want you to be courageous, right? They want you to be courageous when you're dying for the military. They don't want you to be courageous when you're standing up against corrupt politicians and dirty police. They call that resisting arrest. But if you were dying for your country, you'll get a medal around your neck. You see, this is where the perspective comes into play. They don't want you having intelligence, right? Where you're able to move the curtain. They want you to have just enough intelligence so you could go get a job and pay taxes.
And follow directions.
And follow directions the first time they are given. Like they told you in kindergarten, right? Kindergarten, right? So, you know, a lot of the times, these stories about who we are as people are really like right there in front of our eyes. And what I'm going to be doing with this show, I'm going to be on Sundays and Thursdays. On Sundays, I'll be on around 2 o'clock. On Thursdays, I'll be on around 5. Once the football starts, I'm going to make adjustments because, you know, I like my little fantasy football and shit, and I ain't about to be missing any games. You know, as much as I like to talk shit on the internet, I'm not missing any football. So I'll make adjustments, and I'll make sure that I'll keep everybody in the loop. Moving forward, I want to make this an interactive podcast. I don't want this to be me talking for an hour because, to be honest, I really don't like talking. It makes me feel really uncomfortable. You know, I'm one of those people that, you know, less is more. Like, you know, but I'm going to have phone lines. We're going to have chat rooms to where if there's topics that you want to talk about specifically, we're going to be able to get into these topics in depth and detail. And if there's anybody that would like to come on the show and speak their mind, you more than welcome to come. You know, because you know me, I'm not asking for nothing. You know what I'm saying? The way this works is I come here, I share my time with you. It's an hour of your time. We build, we learn, and then we move on with the rest of our day. You know what I'm saying? I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to convince you. I'm not even asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to look for things for yourself. Research things for yourself. Stop arguing with your neighbor about being informed if you're uninformed. This is because we have a lot of this. We have two uninformed groups of people arguing all the time, and we need to stop that. You know what I'm saying? We're going to talk about finances, how to get our finances together, right? We got to stop the GoFundMe funerals. We got to stop this. You know what I'm saying? We need to start creating generational wealth for our children. How can we do this, right? By getting life insurance, right? Because you get insurance for your car, you get insurance for your house, you get insurance for everything, but most people don't even get insurance for themselves, right? If you die tomorrow, who's going to take care of your kids? That's something that you really got to ask yourself. Who's going to take care of your family if you die tomorrow? We live in a city where, I mean, you know how it is. I don't really want to get into detail because I'm not here to bash my city. You know, if anything, I'm trying to elevate my city and I'm trying to lift it up past the reputation that it and you know, a lot of that came from the music. You remember when the Bone Thugs and Harmony came out with the and you know, they put the whole pentagram over the city of Cleveland, and you know, there's a lot of dark energy, you know, and I love Bone. They're one of my favorite groups, and you know, one of the favorite podcasts that I like listening to right now is Crazy Bones podcast because he be dropping a lot of facts. But also the fact of the matter is that there was a lot of dark energy that got attributed to our city, right? We were known as the land of the heartless, right? Well, what's the number one gang in the city right now? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you understand how these things work to socially engineer people. You tend to have a better respect and a greater understanding of how the world works. You know, like moving forward, we're really going to get it today. I only scratched the surface. This is the first episode. I wasn't really trying to sit here and be looking at books and all that. You know, I was really excited. I was nervous. I'm like, you know, I didn't sleep last night. You know, I spent the whole time trying to get everything. And, you know, moving forward, though, we're really going to get into scholarship because that's something that so probably next episode, we're going to be getting into these books. We're going to be highlighting. You know, it's going to be words that I'm not going to be able to say and pronounce correctly, and I'm probably going to get a brain aneurysm saying them, but I'm going to try to say them anyway, because this is what we need to do, you know? And, you know, I'm willing to work with everybody that's willing to work with me, you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to get ready to wrap up here soon, But before I go, I want to make sure that I give a shout out to my people at One Life to Play. It's over here on Broadview Road. Paul, if you can give the address real quick and let them know where we're at.
I got you. I got you. You can pull it right up for you.
It's a beautiful spot. You can bring the kids up here. We got Xbox, PlayStations, PCs, whatever you want. It's a gaming arena. So you come up here with the kids, you have a good time. You know, I'm very grateful for having this opportunity to work with people. My friend, Mr. Snow, aka Noe. I know a lot of y'all know him. You know, a lot of this, you know, he came into town not too long ago, and you know, I've been fortunate that I got friends that pull me to the side and be like, "Yo, you need to get it together." You know what I'm saying? And not in a bad way. It's just motivation. You know, we need those kind of friends because a lot of times we focus on the friends that's hating and we don't give enough credit to the friends that pulled us to the side and motivated us to do better in life. And I've been fortunate, you know, I've been fortunate that I've had people in my life that pull me to the side and be like, "Yo, bro, you can do better than what you're doing right now." So I'm always grateful for them. So moving forward, I want to thank everybody that came and listened today. I want to thank everybody that's been showing their love and support. I want to thank everybody that, you know, that gives me those little words of encouragement, you know what I'm saying? And moving forward, I'm going to try to make this podcast something that is worth an hour of your time. Because I can't, you know, thing about time, you know, time is very valuable and it's very precious. So if I'm going to take an hour of it, I want to make it worth it. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody for coming out today, and thank you for participating in this first Living Proof podcast. Paul, big shout out. You did
Yep.
a
You
wonderful
good?
job on everything. Everything looks amazing, and I'll be looking forward to seeing everybody Thursday. So it'll be Thursday at between 5 and 6 o'clock. Thank you
Hey.
for coming out, and
Hey, this was great. I can't wait to see all the other new information that we get to pull up and share with people. Some of this information may be old to us because we've been doing it for a while.
yeah. But I
Hey.
mean that's okay because you know one thing about information is that no matter how old it is,
It's always new to
there's
someone.
always something about it that you missed,
Yep.
right?
How many times have I always said like, "Man, I seen that, but I'm going back to watch it again."
You're gonna go
I'm
back
going
and watch
to
it
watch
again.
it
That's
again.
what research is. Research means to search again. The prefix "re" means to do again, right? So when we research, we are searching again.
Got to find those hidden gems and fruit.
Yeah. You put the link up for the place.
Yeah, I got the link right here. OneLifeToPlay.com. You can find all the information you need there. You can plan parties, or you can just come in, kick back. We got a VIP zone. We have 11,000 square feet of space to enjoy and quote unquote keep your social distancing space at a safe level.
Alrighty.
And with that, we're going to close it out.
I finished exactly at 3:03. That's hilarious.